Today I'm going to show you how easy the updates to the UV editor in 2021 make it to work with your Alias data inside of VRED. So to begin, let's start by looking at the data inside of Alias. So what you'll see here is we have a NURBS modeled seat, a series of patches that have been blended together using traditional Alias techniques. I've taken it one step further this time, and I built some curves out here in space, and I projected them onto my surface. I want to do some decorative stitching up the seat. So I projected the curves on, duplicated the surfaces, mirrored them over. I actually did do a slight offset. It's not necessarily needed, but just for visibility, so I'm not seeing two surfaces right on top of each other, I use this, but I'll show you why later when I'm inside of VRED. So now that this looks good, let's take this data into VRED. So I've already imported it. And let's go ahead and get started. So under Scene, there's the UV editor. Opens up another window. It looks very similar to what we had in the previous versions of VRED. It starts in select object mode. So if I select an object, like the headrest, or even this main back area, you'll see that the NURBS patches, each surface has a UV orientation from 0 to 1. And this is more apparent if I turn on Show Checkerboard and Show Texture. And now you can see that every single surface inside of Alias has a UV space from 0 to 1. And this is why we use the UV editor to now have one texture coordinate system based on all these surfaces together. In the previous version of VRED, it was a series of clicks that was required to get all the surface patches unfolded, sewn together, and then laid out. In 2021.1, we now have a much more streamlined method. First thing I do is I check on this box, Sew on Unfold. And now with a single click on the Unfold and Layout button, it unfolds, lays out the geometry, nice, orderly, very as I would expect, much easier than the previous version. So let's go ahead and do the headrest. Again, click on it, unfold and layout. Very fast. Click on these two bolsters at the same time, unfold and layout. Click on the seat base, go ahead and maybe click on the center, click on this piece, unfold and layout. Now, as I pick all these pieces, you'll see that the relative scale of the checkerboard is based on the object. That's because as it's unfolding and laying out everything, it's trying to fit it within this 0 to 1 space. Since I'm going to be placing a texture, a material across all of these surfaces, I want them to all relate to each other. That's where the next button that I click is this Apply World Scale. What that does is it now changes the size of each of the patches inside of the UV editor so that the real world scale of all these UV texture coordinates relates to each other. So now you'll see that across all of my surfaces, the checkerboard pattern that comes with the software is the same across every patch. Now, if I want to get in and start modifying some of these, I can go and let's say grab these two. If I switch over to the island mode, which also can be accessed by pressing Shift and middle mouse in the UV editor window. By clicking that, I get an instant pop-up which allows me to switch modes. So I can select these. Also, right here in the window, Shift W for translate, Shift E for rotate, R for scale. So right inside of this interface, I can rotate these. So maybe I want to line this up so it's more the checkerboard pattern, is more vertical. So as I bring my texture in, it relates. If I select the other one, I could rotate it. I want these to be similar. So there's a button here at the bottom which allows me to flip my selection. So I'm going to flip it horizontally. So now I can actually move this over, rotate this, and position it so that now these two mirror surfaces are laid out the same. So if I do bring in a texture that has to mirror from one side to the other, I'll know that they're identical. This headrest, so if I switch back to here and I grab this headrest surface, you'll see that this one is slightly rotated. So again, Shift middle mouse, go to island, I can select this, Shift W, Shift E for rotate. Now I can rotate this. So really quick and easy to adjust all the UVs on all my surfaces. So now let's go and grab some materials. For today's demo, I'm going to grab all of my materials off of Substance Share. Once you log into Substance Share and create an account, this is a place where you can go and grab materials or Substance materials that have been created by users. So for today's demo, I'm going to be using these three: thick cloth, shirt pattern, and stitches. And these were created by Pascal from the VRED team. So once I've downloaded all these, I'll show you how to bring them into VRED. To import a substance material into VRED, you open up your material editor, and you can either go to the Create menu, or you can right-click and go Create Substance. A substance material will come in with nothing inside of it, no attributes, nothing, because you need to import the substance material into the VRED scene. So hit the Load button, and then select your material and import. Once that material has been brought in, you can drag and drop it into your scene. Now this material, as with everything that comes into VRED, the default setting is triplanar. So we're going to want to go over to the texture settings and switch it to UV. Now inside of the material editor, I can go in and make some changes to this preset material that has been brought in. Now let's bring in the next material. So again, right click, create material, go to substance, open, navigate to your material, shirt pattern, hit open. Go to the texture setting, switch it to UV, drag and drop it onto your part. Use the letter M to pick and drop. Now, what's nice about substance materials is I can right click and I can say create new preset. So now I've made it a preset for this material. If I go down to the shirt pattern and maybe I make some changes to the material because I want it to be a little more gray, less red. I can right click and say create new preset. So now I really quickly can go in here and start trying out different things. So again, maybe I want to do a blue. Create new preset. So now I can cycle through my different options for my fabric. And if I tumble the model around, you can see that my material now flows nice and smoothly up and over all my surfaces. Now, if it was a triplanar, the issue we have with triplanar is as it wraps up and around as it transitions from one triplanar projection to the other, we get these blend zones where we see where the material doesn't blend smoothly. So again, this is why UV is preferred. So now let's get right to these stitches. Again, open up the UV editor, switch over to select objects, shift and click in my scene. See that I've grabbed this ribbon surface. If I turn on my checkerboard, you see that this is not going to look very good. And before we get started on this one, let's go ahead and bring in that substance material. Right click, create material, substance, go to open, navigate to where you've located this stitch.sbsar, select it, hit open. If I take this material and apply it to this object and switch it to UV, you can see that as it's placing the stitch based on the UVs, we're getting very, not results that I would expect or want. This is why we need the UV editor. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, but the reason I went ahead and brought it in is because now I can go to Show Texture and turn off the checkerboard. And now I get a representation in that 0 to 1 space of where the stitch is. So let's make sure that Sew and Unfold is on. Press the Unfold and Layout button. Now it takes all of these surfaces, sews them, unfolds them, lays them out, but because this piece of geometry has some shape to it, I now have this S-ing surface. This is where I can now jump over to the Select UV Edges mode. What we're going to do is we're going to take this curvy shape and make it straight. So what I want to do is I want to select borders only, and if I shift and click, it will select an edge. But I'm only able to select the outer edges. If I try to grab something in the middle, it won't select it because this checkbox is on. So shift and click, I'll now select it. Shift and double click will select the whole edge, and you can actually see it in your VRED window and also in your UV editor window. What I want to do now is constrain that to the U. Do the same with the opposite side. Shift, double click, constrain U. And now you'll see that these two edges have turned pink. This is an indication that tells me that the constrain U command has been applied to this edge. So let's go to the bottom, shift, click, constrain to the V. And you'll see that now I get a baby blue color. Just a nice visual indicator that I've done something. It's always good to get feedback. Go to the top edge, shift, double click, selects the whole edge, constrain to the V. Now, what I want to do is go back to the Unfold and Layout button. And let's press that. What's happened now is it's taken that curvy shape and it's made it straight. So I've constrained this edge to the U direction and these edges to the V direction. And this helps me because now I can go back to the island, shift and click on that island, on that whole patch. Shift W, I'm currently in the translate mode, so let's go ahead and put it right up here on the center. Shift E is rotate, Shift R is scale, and now I want to scale this up. And I'm going to scale this up until the vertical dimension matches from 0 to 1. So right there, Shift W to move it, place it like this. And now you can see that my stitch is in the middle of my surface. And if I turn off my wireframe, come back here and look at it, you can see that the stitch now is perfectly centered on that patch and moving along that surface. Now I can close my UV editor, I can go back into my material editor, and I can do all my adjustments from this point forward in the material editor. So the presets are built in on this material as well. So we have a series of stitches to start with. So the red looks pretty good. I kind of like this offset green, but let's make it something different. Let's go down to the settings. So if I go to my stitch settings, I can remove the quilt, which is this center line. And let's switch the color to red. Do I go with a red to match the plaid, or do I go with a white to be more contrast? Let's go with the white. So I'm going to hit accept. Let's go to displacement. And this is where the offset, I'm going to fix my offset. So you can see that these stitches are floating off the surface. If I adjust the height of my stitch, it now gives it some dimension. And if I turn on this use accurate silhouettes in OpenGL, you now see is it running up and over the surface. So maybe that's a little much. So let's go to like 0.5. And now I can fix this offset by using the displacement offset. So this allows me to move the stitch up and down till it's intersecting the surface right there. So pretty cool way to put stitches into my scene and have control over them. So now I can go back to my material and I can right click, say create preset new. So now I have a preset. So now I can try maybe doing another option. So let's do this one. Make it red. It's a little bit on the orange side. Try to make it match the red that's in the material. Gotta hit save. Hit accept. And now I can switch between my two options. So now I'm going to do it to the rest of the surfaces and I'll show you the final results. So now I've got all of my stitching done. And let's check out some of the presets. If I go to these presets, you'll notice that the right side, all of my stitches are pointing the wrong direction. Partially because these were mirrored geometry, so as the UV unwrapping made them go the opposite direction. This is an easy fix. So go back to your UV editor, select the islands that you want to adjust. So in this instance, go ahead and grab all these islands. And down at the bottom, there's the flip horizontal button. So I can quickly just flip these to adjust which way the pattern or texture is going. So go back to my material, switch back to my preset. In this instance, I think I do like the white stitching. The updates to the UV editor inside of VRED 2021.1 make the tool much easier to use, much faster, have a lot more control. And there's a lot more options in there that we didn't even cover today. But these are just sort of the basics on how to work with alias data and how easily it is to bring this right into VRED and quickly get to work, being able to apply textures and materials all over the file. One last little patch. Let's just go ahead and grab that one. Unfold and lay out, manipulate, apply world scale. Perfect. Thanks for watching.